work. And today I have a very special guest, Diego Ariola. Diego is coming from Mexico and joining from Mexico now, and now he's part of sustainability and sector, sustainability industry, and he and his companies are innovating a lot within this area. And on the other hand, Diego has an extremely interesting personal journey. Started from corporate, launching own ventures, being a board of advisor, part of startups, and you name it. So today we're going to talk about what happens during those kind of journeys with leaders on personal levels, and on the other hand, how business renovating their business models during their sustainable growth. Because what we see now that every business to be successful, you need to be successful over like 5, 10, 20 years, and not so easy as to be successful within 3 months. So, Diego, my word to you. Can you please tell a little bit more about your background? What are you doing now? What are you passionate now about?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Irina, for having me in this space and being able to tell a little bit of my personal journey and obviously our company's journey and what we're doing now in the energy sector. First of all, I am an electromechanical engineer, so I have a background in engineering. I've had the opportunity of studying abroad, doing first an MBA in Spain, and then an MSc in England at Imperial College. And those two experiences abroad allowed me to first open the mind a little bit to particularly innovation and what was happening in other countries. And in terms of my background, in terms of work, I started back in 2003. It's been a long while now in a big utility. I was in the corporate world for a lot of time, and actually I'm an entrepreneur. I ended up being an entrepreneur by chance, not by choice. That is the first part. So I was really happy in my corporate life. I enjoyed growing in the company. In my family, entrepreneurial spirit is not something that is common. My dad worked for the same company for 35 years, the Mexican utility, and my two brothers as well have always been in the corporate world with some entrepreneurial approaches. But basically, I was very happy with my corporate world, and I understood that I was more an intrapreneur than an entrepreneur. So I had the opportunity of working in a big utility, and I liked the challenges because back in the day, the teams here were very limited in resources. So that for me was an opportunity that allowed me to understand a lot of the processes that were involved in selling electricity from the actual generation plants in order to get it to the grid and then doing the transactions with the clients. So we had being a very limited team, we had or having a very limited resources, we had the opportunity of seeing the whole process and to intervene in the whole process. So that gave me the opportunity of growth. I ended up going back and forth in different segments of the company, but within the same company for almost 14 years. So I had the opportunity of dealing with energy management, with natural gas combined cycles, power plants, with renewables. So being in touch with the regulation. So as I said, I was very happy in the corporate world.
And what triggered you? I mean, you said that your entrepreneurship journey started by chance, not by choice. So, what triggered
Correct.
you? I mean, what was like, inflection point?
At some point, I was growing within the company. I got offered a good position in the same company, and I was doing my work in that area. I was a commercial director for Mexico at the end of my career with the utility, and the private equity funds were very active in Mexico. There was energy reform going on. There was a lot of interest in new investment. So the second company that I worked for was, I would say, a little bit aggressive in terms of getting talent, and they invited me for, I would say, about a year. We had this conversation.
Mm.
I was not I was not convinced because I really remember that I really liked my going to the office, having my coffee with my colleagues, and the what I say 9 to 5 work. It was never from 9 and it was never till 5, but it was the work that I loved to do, and I was not convinced. At some point, the conversation started to get very serious, and I jumped into the private equity. It was a platform from the private equity fund that invested in Mexico, and the opportunity was there. The pace of the private equity funds is very, very different. It is, as you know, they have a very limited time to add value to investments and then to move on, basically. No, so we had a very interesting journey. From the I was there the director for commercial and strategy. There were some clean energy auctions that were the mechanism for private investment in the energy sector in Mexico. So the regulation was there, the investments were there, and obviously the interest of participating in this new market, because the wholesale electricity market was created at that point. So basically, it was when all the private investment came into the energy sector in Mexico. I eventually decided to move to this new company, still sort of a corporate position with different incentives, but it was a very different pace. As I said, this private equity fund and this mechanism, I was responsible for the commercial allocation, all the energy. I was responsible basically of selling the electricity. So at some point with the clean energy auctions, we allocated all the energy. So basically, I had no more energy to sell, and that was
It's a bit of a challenge.
it is a challenge. So there's no um, you've added value to the company because I was responsible with the relationship with the clients, but still uh, there was no more. I would say no more use of my talent there.
And what happened
Um,
next?
well, personally, I my mother passed away in that period of time, so that was for me. It changed my priorities very quickly. So my main objective was to uh, realize what I was doing with my time. So that became the most important variable for me. Became what I was actually dedicating my time to. So that changed my priorities completely. And um, talking to my boss in that at that moment, he wanted me to participate more in the operational part of the company, so basically supervising operation of the assets. And given my engineering background, it could be something that would be a good fit. But for my whole career, I didn't want to do. That was one of the reasons I was not a medical doctor, right? Not having the phone 24/7 and being available 24/7. Then an operation, and I respect a lot my colleagues in operations because they do that job very. I respected my colleagues there, and I do now because they are always available, and they do that in the energy sector is required a real 24/7 approach
Yeah,
to
it's very
the
like
job.
hands-on and totally different vibe.
Very demanding, and very stressful, I would say. No, and not that we didn't have enough stress, but it's a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
So I was not a good fit for me. I didn't want to do that within the company, and given some non-compete clauses, I couldn't go to another company immediately. So we had to comply with that part of our contract. And what I negotiated first, and I always wanted to had advisory clients. I wanted to go into the advisory part of the process. I always remember seeing the advisors that came to my clients, wishing I was one of them. Like, these guys have a good life. No? This is a good life. They come probably from the tennis court, and uh, they just attend their clients, and here we are, the corporate guys. So I really visualized that that kind of life would be possible. So I negotiated with my boss that I would they would be my first client. So that's why I say I ended up as by chance being having my advisory
Okay.
services company with my previous company as my first client, and always having obviously the non-compete period of time would be we wouldn't be in a breach of that contract. So that was what happened in the it was a 6 months period with that. It was a very harsh transition for me. It was very complicated to basically stay at home and going to the meetings whenever needed. It was a change in my life, a very drastic change in my life. At that moment, I decided to play tennis again. I played tennis when I was young, and I decided to dedicate my life a little bit more to tennis because that helped me. That is part of my therapy in having that competitive part in that challenge of training for tournaments, and having that part in my life is very, very important. And that's why I decided to go there. But there was no remuneration for the first 6 months, no income, so that was a challenge as well. And obviously, having one client and being able to have only one client was a very challenging part of my life. Obviously, I had second thoughts of what was going on. I wanted to go back to my previous job, to my corporate, and I'm really, really grateful I didn't do that. Then I decided to look into other options, and again, by chance, I ended up meeting my partners now in the software company. As I said, I was always an entrepreneur, and I always develop tools for our commercial processes within the company. So I interacted a lot with software developers, with the programmers that were giving us the tools in order to make our processes a little bit more effective. So I ended up meeting with my partners, with my now partners, with a solution that I always thought was possible to give the clients and energy consumers the tools that they require so they can buy electricity. So I transitioned from selling electricity to helping buy electricity. I remember one of my now partners was very critical and still is, and I admire that. And the processes he was mentioning that what I was showing them was only a PowerPoint, and from the PowerPoint to the tool there was a long journey. So how would we add value to the customers, and how can we really have a value proposition that can make sense to the market?
And here I
So,
will jump with my question. So you
mhm,
told a couple of times that you were entrepreneur like across whole your career track among the organizations. So, uh, I mean, it should be like last question of our podcast, but I will
no
put
worries.
it here. So how you felt or understood when it was right time to innovate, like with this business model reinvention, which you're now talking about, like changing from selling to buying and helping other people to buy electricity. So, I mean, it's like I don't know. Do you have special crystal ball, or or I don't know how you understand this? I mean, do you read data, or how it happens? What's your process here?
Mhm.
What triggers?
Definitely, the trends in general are very important. What you see, obviously, in terms of energy consumption, in sustainability, what are the companies looking for? What are the companies really struggling with? I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit about the tool that we use. It is based in a book that was written by Dr. Alexander Osterwalder. No, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a business model generation that allows you to identify first the segments that you're trying to reach. Like segmentation of the markets are very, very important. If you want to address the whole market and you don't have the clarity of who are you dealing with and who are you serving, that is a big challenge. So that segmentation is key, and obviously identifying the pains and the gains of your clients and how your value proposition is addressing both of them. First, the pains, because when they are struggling with something, basically they have this big challenge on the corporate world of reducing 30% of their CO2 emissions. Then that is on the statement, no, the company statement worldwide. Then the operational guys ask how do we do that, and that is a pain for them because they have to comply with the big corporate goal and with the claims that they are doing, and they don't know how. So that is a big pain that we address, so we help them with that, with those kind of issues. And we also see the gains. For example, if we can buy and give them 25-30% discount from their current tariff, that is an immediate gain, and that is something that they value a lot. If we can give them the information, help them negotiate the contracts, and addressing those two, the pains and the gains with a value proposition to a specific segment, I would highlight that is the best process that we can follow. Obviously, we had bets in the process in Mexico specifically. When we launched one of our tools, the wholesale electricity market was very young, so basically nobody knew how to do it. And I'll tell you an experience after I joined the company and we launched the first tool. We were addressed by a big utility again, that was looking for a tool for the wholesale electricity market. Nobody had a tool, but we didn't know that. So what happened is they invite us to a process, and this is addressing a pain that they had. They had the challenge of migrating one of their oldest assets. By regulation, they have to move to the wholesale electricity market. So they asked companies to propose a solution, and we came very transparently, a young company, Mexican company with a young team, developing a new tool. So we were basically not expecting much from that meeting, actually, but we said we want to show you where we are. There's a beta version of our software that probably you want to look at. We wanted feedback from them so we can have that feedback in our own process, and we ended up signing the contract. And when we asked how did we do this, how did we achieve this, they responded, you are the only ones that showed us something. So these tools were a very young market. It was nobody had the tools. The regulation was still under development, and from 7-8 companies that participated, the only ones that showed something working rather than a PowerPoint, as one of my partners showed, it was our company. So we ended up having the contract. Still, our 7 years down the road, it's still our client now. So
So
yes.
if I allowed to sum up, just like some kind of like a process for other companies and founders. So basically, you need to be very close with your customer segment. Don't try to serve everyone. Focus on whom you're really serving, trying to understand them, what they need, what they're struggling with, like pains and gains. and adjust your value proposition. And I can't say that you need to resync it oftenly, but you need to, have some kind of reality check that you're still there.
Absolutely.
And if you see the opportunity, like with this example, so try to be fast if you have enough resources, obviously, but also be accountable and committed. So in your example, if you would came with like one more slides, like search company in their own, nothing would happen. But you came with some kind of prototype. Maybe it was limited in functionality, but still it was something you were already working on, which showed your commitment, persistency, accountability, and all of that, which helped your client now make a right decision 7 years ago. Uh,
Yes, agree 100%. Agree 100%. We showed something different. We didn't know that, but we were very transparent in terms of our where we were at in the development of the tool. We knew that there were big companies from other countries coming to Mexico adapting their own tools, but they stopped and they decided to adapt to the Mexican market when they had the first contract. So
Now, okay.
we were the first movers in that because we didn't have any other. We developed our tools based in the Mexican market, and that gives us agility. Still, we can serve our clients because we are based on the Mexican regulation, and we have a very good team that of programmers that are the process of adaptation to the new regulation is still under development. As I told you yesterday, no, 2 days ago, the regulation was changed in Mexico in the energy sector. Like, not drastically, I would say, but there's an important change in the law. So we are now, as we
You
speak,
can be fast.
adapting to that. So we are ready. We are ready. And in the past 6 years, we had a little bit of less inertia in the Mexican energy sector. There were no new projects coming online. So we had to adapt to the existing customer base and add value to our existing customers. So we very specifically focused in the clean energy options. We now serve around 40% of that market. So we have adapted. We have created a process of that specific contract that has given us the opportunity of growing in a very complex environment, I would say. So yes, I really thought this process to be one good example to show entrepreneurs that you have to be very transparent of what you can do and what you really can deliver, and to be very clear with your client, because they asked us. This conversation was in February of that year, and they asked, "Can you deliver in April?" And we committed contractually to April. So, and we delivered in April. That's why we're still working with them. And we solved a very important issue that they had at that moment. And just by adding transparency to the commercial process and obviously committing to dates and delivering, that is something that was very part of the success in that particular experience.
And one more question to you here. So basically, you had the role of like corporate creature, like you name it. So you were part of private equity, but like in between corporate and not corporate. So you were advisor, and now you're like a co-founder. I mean, you're leading company. So like four different roles or three different roles. So can you name just like two top challenges for every roles?
Yes.
You proceed. So why it's important? Because sometimes other people who are in your shoes, they think that they have some kind of very unique problem and they don't know how to address it.
Mm-hmm.
When we hear examples of other people understand, okay, it's not so unique problem, there is a Diego who already knows what to do with it. So it
Yes.
gives me some kind of like, inspiration that I also able to manage this in my life. So what are like
Perfect.
top two talent challenges for roles you had?
Well, the first one, the corporate world, I said I really enjoyed my journey there. I would never go back there, but I really enjoyed it. And growth is in within the companies can be challenging, and understanding, having the emotional intelligence of participating in teams. And then if you decide to lead teams, because not everybody wants to lead teams, and that depends on your personality. I was surprised that colleagues of mine that were, when I had the first opportunity, I was really, really young, but there was an opening, and it was a very limited potential of candidates within the company. It was a very small team, and I thought everybody was going to be a candidate because it was a huge opportunity for everybody. And one of my colleagues said, "I'm not interested. I don't want to do that. I don't want to lead the team. I don't want to have that responsibility." And I was surprised to see that they didn't want, that he didn't want. I questioned his decision at that moment, and then I understood with time why he was not. He didn't want that responsibility. And then having the one of my mistakes during my corporate world experience was I evaluated every people in my team with the same measurement, and it
Mm.
was I expected exactly the same thing from every colleague, and it was the same commitment that I had with the company, and not necessarily everybody ready or not necessarily had the same tools for the actual objective of our area. So being very clear of what you expect of everybody and understanding what they can deliver to the team, what they can contribute to the team is so you can actually um, give them the potential of growth as well with their own abilities. People are different, and we have to understand that. So I made that mistake when I was in a management position in a very young stage of my career. Then within the companies, and particularly big companies, there are internal politics that you have to deal with. There are a lot of, when you grow in the company, you see a lot of competition and a lot of how people use information for their own benefit rather than the benefit of the whole company. That happens. That's human nature, I would say. I was not very enthusiastic about that because I've I've always tried to be part of a team and getting the best results for everybody. But that is something that you have to navigate the, I would say, the corporate culture. No. Um, in terms of the entrepreneurial part and being part of this company from not from the start, because I joined the company as part of their growth strategy. My partners were there since 2008. I joined in 2017, so they already had a very well-known company, but we gave it the spin of the wholesale electricity market. But managing stakeholders was a new challenge. No, negotiating with my partners what is the best alternatives. And as you said, and the answer is I do not have a crystal ball, so I have made mistakes as well with the strategy, but we have to push in some direction, right? If not, if we're waiting for things to happen rather than creating the space in the segment and attending some of the segments that are not um, uh, well addressed, then we would not grow as we expect. So that negotiation has been very interesting, assigning resources. In the corporate world, there's not an illimited amount of resources, but there's a little bit more space, particularly in big companies. In smaller companies, we evaluate every cent, right? You know that every cent is you're responsible for the employees, for their payroll, and giving them the actual visibility of the long-term viability of the company is important, and that is something that you provide as a partner in the company and the long-term solution. So in that part, negotiating with the stakeholders and understanding you're responsible for everything the company does, right? Obviously, in a big corporate, you're following instructions. Obviously, you get into a point that you have to create the strategy as well, but there's a very limited space. In your own company, you can create things, but you're responsible for the end result. So um, I would say the benefit of the payroll in the corporate world, you sleep better. You sleep better at night. Uh, in this side, you do not, but you have,
But you
and
can
I,
manage, your like stress relaxation, stress management techniques.
exactly. And as I said, my priority became my time, and time is more important for me in terms of what am I doing. So why am I doing the things in the with the most limited resource that is our time? That is something that I value a lot now in this position. That is the reason I would never go back to the corporate world because
Yeah,
you're
because sometimes it's a little bit more about process and result.
that is correct. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and if we're talking about, I mean, a lot of examples you brought today, they were related to some kind of like change, not change management as a process, but I mean changing how company operated, scaling to a new market, entering new market, launching new like feature or software or product, whatever. So
Hmm.
it's like leading this change, I mean, in terms of like process and strategy inside corporate world, and when you run your own venture, is it different? Is there some kind of difference how it happens, or what kind of skills required from you as a leader?
Hmm. I would say that my approach has not been different. Being the intrapreneur and being an entrepreneur, and it has not been that process has not been different. Like understanding that is with why this tool of the business model generation tool and the business model canvas that I really use a lot. It is the process of understanding first the client. Why are you doing? And it can be an internal client or an external client. Who are you serving? And why are you doing that? How do you address that? So that is the main concern, because when you do, and I've done that, and I've had that mistake in the past, in terms of developing the tool without knowing what are you going to use it for. So then you try to force the idea and that this tool will be the solution. No, so it's a process that it has to be, and you have to be very critical on your own expectations and on your own process of innovation. So why are you trying? Is this really something that your client would use or needs and is willing to pay for? So that is something within the company. Are you gonna get the resources in order to develop this new innovation in order to serve this specific purpose? So that is something that I've always tried to do, understanding perfectly what is the need, understanding the barriers, why people are very intelligent. That I do that approach. We're very intelligent. Why has this not been done before? No, we're trying to question why, if it seems so easy, if it seems so straightforward, why are people not doing that? And understanding those barriers is very important. For that, having that iteration, no, and understanding. I also have another partner that's very critical on what I try to do. Like, bring me the money, bring me the contract, and we'll talk about the resources. So that is the negotiation that is always on the table. No, but that is something that I appreciate from them. That I balance. I tend to be a little bit on the positive side and on the and trying to push with the intentions of serving that specific purpose. But the pushback that I receive is always very convenient, and that going back and forth can has given us the right balance.
Yeah, it's like,
Right now,
mhm.
we're in the middle of that because we're trying to serve from in our business model. We serve from generators that own the electric assets, wind farms, solar facilities, natural gas combined cycles, combined heat and power. So all the generation side is, and it's a very small market in Mexico. We know each other. Everybody knows everybody within that sector. Then there are the suppliers that is new in the regulation, and the suppliers buy and sell the electricity, but they're the intermediaries. And there's this big piece of the market that is the end users that we understand are the ones first that have the power to really commit to the energy transition and have the volume of electricity that requires all the new investment requires an off taker. So these are the ones that we believe that are going to make the difference in the end. If we give them the tools, if we serve them with the correct incentives to everybody, we can actually get the investments on the new investments in the energy sector. So now our bet and what I'm dealing with internally and externally is serving this new segment. It's not a new segment. As I said, I used to sell electricity for the past 20 years, but now helping people buy is relatively new. It's a new market, new conditions. And since Tuesday, we have new regulations. So that is the challenge. So how we approach that is probably for the next podcast if we really if we really achieve this or not. But that is our current challenge to help people buy. They can buy cheaper, more environmentally friendly electricity, traceability in their consumptions and the origin of their electricity. So we're trying to provide them with those kind of tools, right?
What I hear, I mean, what I hear from you now and what I hear from other entrepreneurs like tech, non-tech sector, it doesn't matter. So if you felt are falling in love with a client, him or her or itself, I mean, just trying to serve, like literally serve,
Hmm.
it helps to push your business forward because you are thinking about what they need versus thinking about, oh my God, I have created the most beautiful and perfect product in the world. Everyone is going to like it. So falling in love with a client is much better than with a product where you're working on.
Absolutely.
Totally different
Putting
perspective.
very different perspective. Putting the ego aside is very
Yeah.
important. Like I know what you need. I know what you need, and that was something I understood in a different position in my corporate experience. I was a country manager for the renewables part of the business in this big utility, and they invested in a very specific region in Mexico, in the southeast of Mexico, in Oaxaca, that you have the best winds. Back in the day, was the best winds. Now it's technology has evolved in a different direction, but back in the day, it was the best alternatives. And dealing with the landowners gave me a lot of clarity in this approach because the landowners where obviously it's a relatively poor area in Mexico, so and they couldn't do anything with the land because of the wind.
Hmm.
So there's a very nice story about well, obviously landowners receiving money. That was something that they were really interested in. Obviously, that creates other positive and negative incentives with money that causes different things. But then, um, what their approach was, and some companies, what they try to do is, we know what you need as landowners, and we're gonna give you this support, and we're gonna show you how to do this. But we changed the perspective of asking them what they really needed, what they really wanted, without because what they wanted was jobs, that the wind industry in the operational part does not create a lot of jobs. A lot of them are done remotely, unfortunately. During the construction phase, there's a lot of work, but it's a very limited time frame, and it's not something that is sustainable in the 20 years or 25 years that that asset is going to operate. So trying to impose the something to those landowners, and giving them the what we believe were the tools for them to strive was one of our biggest mistakes. So what they came, and we changed the approach, and we have this amount of money that we can invest in the community. What do you want to do with it? And then we did a process of asking what they wanted to do with that amount. And every year we had a better and better solution, totally unrelated to the wind industry, because it has to be creating opportunities for them to do something with their own money, and to do something not related to that, because and eventually what will happen is wind farms are not going to be developed in that area. So you cannot create 20 or 25 years of dependence on this income and then move from the and leaving all the community without their income. Because what happened is there were very limited activities of what they could do with the land due to the wind.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they received the money from the wind farms and the rental of the property, they decided to stop working, because they now you created a problem. An industry created a problem there. So we had colleagues from the mining industry that were very interesting to hear, and that is their approach on mining as well. We cannot create a problem, go take the resources or the minerals, and then leave a community without
Yeah.
any, basically with any income, that and without a livelihood actually, from them forward. So we started with this, and starting to hear what they wanted to do with that money was very obviously there was lot of interest. They wanted to do baseball fields, and we want to do productive investments. So that was a challenge. But hearing the community and having that as an example to hearing your customer base and really addressing those needs is very, very important. Just to close that, one of the best experiences I had in Oaxaca, was I got invited to a dinner from the community, and they wanted to thank me. Uh, Obviously, I was only a representative of the company, but I got this message. It was they wanted to thank me because we actually, um, what the grandfather of this person that invited us wanted is, if this community is gonna strive when we manage to sell the wind.
Mm-hmm.
If we can sell the wind, that is that is the solution for this town. And they told me, you made this possible, you sold the wind. So I could not believe I was hearing that. I get goosebumps just remembering that, because they managed to see that as an opportunity, because that what was a curse on that town was the wind. And they managed, we as an industry, and I was only representing the company, I was representing the in general the sector. It was, we were able to sell that and monetize the wind, and that was part of the solution. Hopefully, and I'm looking into that right now. If we can move on from the wind industry with sustainable development, not giving them, as I said, only 25 years of income from the land and then moving on. That is a huge responsibility that the companies have to take. So I think that is one of the best examples of listening to the community, listening to your stakeholders, to your clients, to your partners, and then implementing what you have negotiated. That is the best alternative. No?
And actually, what you have talked about, that this like emotional intelligence, like ability to accept people as they are. I mean, whether they're stakeholders or clients or your team is critical. I mean, you're leading corporations or you're running your own company. So it helps you to understand other perspective and to, like, allocate your resources. And also this like creativity within limited constraints. I think it's also one of the most powerful driver of innovation process, because when you start something new, you often, even if you're part of big corporation, so you have some kind of limitations. I mean, you need to push the idea, you need to convey people, so it takes a lot of resources. And it was great discussion. And one last question is like for you, I mean, for those who are like just now, or whether they enter in the leadership journey or they continue the leader journey, so in terms of like what helps you to make innovations work within your like entrepreneurial experience?
Mhm. Um, understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. Like it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's the start with why. Why are you doing this? Why do we want to pursue this huge task? Is there a need for this? And also the not and confirm that hypo- hypothesis, right? Not that you believe that it's going to be, and as I've said, I've done that mistake myself in that process. That you believe that this is needed and you push forward, but really confirming that as part of the starting process, getting in terms of software and tools and apps and whatever, getting the famous MVP, no, the minimum viable product online to see the look and feel, to get the feedback, to push that quickly with a group that can give you feedback quickly is very important. Allowing criticism, like sometimes, and I always start with those projects, um, giving them a name, no, and a new platform. Oh, in our processes, always have a new identity. So you tend to feel them like it's your own children, no, it's your, so getting criticism on that process is very harsh. So you start closing your and not hearing that is a mistake. Obviously, listen to those kind of criticism, take it from whoever it is, and obviously if you don't feel that is a reasonable feedback, you can still push in the direction you believe. Your internal the gut feeling is very, very important. I would say that is something that would definitely um, in the entrepreneur, you have to keep pushing because it's the motivation has to become from within. That is the big difference, I would say. This comes from within rather than rather than getting the motivation, and it's getting more difficult to fire that. And as I'm getting a little bit older, that gets more complicated. You get comfortable, you get in a way um, that fire, that inner fire, probably is not there as it used to be. But try to keeping that is something that I would strongly recommend.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, this like trust your guts and build your own like energy. And it's also about sustainable energy. I mean, you need to have your own energy source, which makes
Absolutely,
your like work-life balance more sustainable. Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, thank you so much, Diego. It was very like my greatest pleasure to welcome you here. And I think to everyone who were watching us live or going to watch later in the record. So you can drop messages or questions to this podcast on LinkedIn, and I or Diego will be happy to follow up with you. And
Absolutely.
thank everyone who spent their afternoon or morning or whatever part of the world they are time with us.
Thank you so much, Irina, and congratulations on this effort.